because and that makes it expensive, making products from outside the continent cheaper to trade. So we need to look inwards, do a proper analysis. We need to have leaders who are not selfish, who are not so concerned about what they would profit, but who are visionary, thinking 5, 10, 20 years from now. Where do we need to tighten our belts currently so that the future generation would profit or benefit? How are we looking at our university curriculums? Can we have an Africa-wide, you know, um, history lesson, an Africa-wide, and see, I'm in Nigerian. There's very little I know about Gambia. I know more about America than I know about Gambia or than I know about Tanzania, which is very sad. That in Europe, Europeans know about Europe. I lived here in the US with a particular family, and it was only when I was coming to live with them did they start to read about Nigeria. And they said, we started to read about Nigeria because we wanted to know about you. I was the one showing them the map. You understand? So we don't know about each other. We condemn each other. We say, oh, everything bad. I mean, this is just a side joke about the Nigerian jollof and Ghanaian jollof. But we need to find what brings us together. What resources can we share? What knowledge can we exchange? What are those things? What can I learn from Malawi? What can Nigeria learn? Can we send people to other parts? You know, all these things we send people to other parts of. What can we learn from each other so that we can harness our resources properly? We can't keep fighting as a balkanized nation. We need to fight as a collective. We need to have an African agenda. Also, the African Union needs to get serious about what exactly it is they want. The African Union needs to negotiate better. The African Union cannot just exist. You can't have a big name and not be as powerful. You know, we know what the European Union does for countries in Europe. And, you know, we see the implication of one country, UK, pulling out of Europe. Then they should conclude that the European Union, they should conclude that process at the end of November. And already we can see what is happening in the UK. So the African Union needs to be more powerful. The African Union needs to be better funded. The African Union needs to be able to really, really lay sanctions. But we need to come together more collectively. We can't be joking around. We have more to, our children and our children's children should not have the inheritance of poverty. If you're an American or a European, poverty is not what you inherit. You know, the opportunities are there. There is power. There are access to opportunities and resources. What are we leaving for the next generation? It's a family meeting we need to have as Africans. And Nigeria needs to play her role as the big brother.
Wow, interesting. Interesting to know this. Now, Dr. Tade, does this movement really share any similarity with the French Revolution and the Arab Spring? Is there any semblance in what has happened across these two times in history and what is currently happening in Nigeria?
Thank you. Of course, they share similarities from French Arab Spring and then the last or evolving ENDSARS protests. Of course, if you look at the French Revolution, what you see is that it was also caused by widespread inequality, shattering of the old order, where you had the divine rights of kings and you could do and undo, and of course, where you had this might makes right. Of course, people became economically restless. There was a crop failure. So, of course, what we are experiencing in Nigeria today, of course, that resonates in our presence. So you had that. And of course, I think French also participated in a particular war that also landed the country in a sort of a bankruptcy. Of course, Nigeria is borrowing here and there now. So, and we have a whole lot on our head, and people are complaining that even if you are borrowing, of course, that should we should be able to track what these things are being expended on, and then we can have for what we are getting these loans from. But as soon it is gone, as soon as we borrowed it, the money are just gone as soon as it is borrowed. The impact is not felt by the majority, and that is where the crisis is, when the impact is not felt by the majority, and the few are the ones that are, of course, living well. They seem to be the one that is above inflation. It doesn't affect them. Their life chances keeps swelling, irrespective of whether we are in a recession or the economic is well. So you find that happening in the French Revolution. Of course, that also came with consequences. Some of those affecting people's life negatively, including the king at that particular time, had to also go with it. And if you come to Arab Spring, you also find similar features of what's happened that led to the French Revolution. Issue of human rights violation, issue of political corruption, economic decline, widespread poverty. Of course, we had the Poverty Committee of Nations now as Nigerians. And also even in the Arab Spring, you had the frustration of the educated people. And you can't divorce that from those who organize the ENDSARS protest. They are educated,
Exactly.
but frustrated that things are not working. This was not what you promised us. I teach students in the class, and I said, yes, I know. Was he the Reverend Father that was talking about the American dream, what is the Nigerian dream, and the rest of that. And then we talk that in the class, and I asked them, okay, yes, because Americans have been taught to go to school, and when you are out of school, this and this will follow. And you have this, and these are not coming to reality. And someone sits you down and says, yesterday was far better. Do I want to continue to listen to a good past and live in a terrible present? No, this is why people are challenging the present. Because if we are to, of course, move into the future, that will be more, that we can tell a good story to our own children, that my parents cannot be telling me they lived better. I'm living in a terrible state. What will I transfer to my own children? So this is why we can see the similarity. So you have the economic decline also in the Arab Spring, and then people it started moving. And then the issue, demographic factors, was also important, of course, in terms of the character of those people who drove most of these movements wherever it happened. And so the youthful energy also came out to play in the Nigerian situation.
Wow.
And so our own case, what's the immediate and remote causes of the ENDSARS was also pent up anger about a system who have consistently been silent or deliberately negligent about the suffering of a set of people, in which case even the police is also a victim of the system. Of course, because it pays the state for the police to be like that, so that they are also hampered by what they can achieve. They are quoted like every other institution. The police can also, they are back now. They have ordered them back to the street. They are back to the street, but the welfare is not improved. So that is going to bring us to what led to the protests in the first instance. I have interacted with police on the road, and they have told me how they have had to fund the vehicle that I saw with them. And when one said he complained to the DPO that sent them out, what he was told that there is no problem, he would not go with them on next patrol, just sit down here because something must return. So that is it. So, but I think the difference is the context now. We are doing our own ENDSARS protest under a democratically elected government. The Arab Spring and the rest of them had ideological contests with those who were also interested in regime change.
Yeah.
So here, even when the political class raised the issue of people wanting a regime change, it was also strategic. It was also strategic to silence the movement. Because when you say that, of course, of course, that is the only thing they recognize for a change to be effected in a democratically elected government is whether you wait for votes or there is a constitutional impeachment of the person in power. But that was not the thing. But they needed to play that particular card so that they can silence the movement and continue to play on the divisive schemes that they've always played. For the issue of ethnicity and the issue. All these were silent during the protest. I mean the one that was organized originally, not the one that several interest groups later collapsed into the system, because we need to distinguish between groups that eventually collapse their structures into the ENDSARS movement to actualize their long ambition against the state. But I mean those that originally started that particular movement were organized. They showed the state how to organize people. They brought the issue of empathy, that when people had problems, the state should rise up. That's a welfare state. They showed that it is not just about borrowing, that if people believe in a particular cause, they can voluntarily rally round and then, of course, rescue the system. That is a country that they so much believe in. They did that. They met several people. They were not attacking police. When they met them at road intersections, even when those ones wanted to run away, they held on to them, provided food for them, that we understand how you people are suffering. Take water, take this. Some of them were, because they were actually suffering. But unfortunately, the system has kept them a victim. And that is what they are trying also to put in all of us. So these are some of, so the context is only what is different, but the causes, the triggers are almost similar across this period.
Wow, wow. Dr. Tade, I'll still prevail on you, to continue to tell us more about social change and class consciousness. Because from what I've heard and from I've listened to you talk, there are implicit elements of social change gradually coming up, and there is also some element of class consciousness. But I would like you to articulate the issue of social change and class consciousness. In other words, what are the factors that propel social change and class consciousness, and were these strategically deployed in the protest? Was the concept of class consciousness and social change, now that idea of social change, was this strategically deployed in the protest?
All right, thank you. What I know and what I've taught over time, and maybe also showing the little things I do around here, is you see, social change is just simply put as transformation of the culture and social institutions of a particular society over time. And social change can be brought about by a number of factors. But it's important to know that there is no society that you get to that will not experience one form of change or the other. It could be at the family level. So one thing is that social change is characterized by its inevitability. Because it is inevitable, it is part of our history. We would always experience one form of change or the other. Social change is also intentional most of the time and may be unplanned, just like the one we are still talking about now. So it may be intentional. People want change, but several people had to now key into what was ongoing in terms of the protest. Social change is also controversial, and you will see the controversial component of the ENDSARS protest from when it started and how it was forcefully brought to an end. So it is also controversial because the goal of the social change advocates may not tally with the interest of the power structures in the society. And so they have something to contend with. And then social change also shows that there are certain changes that matters more than other form of changes. And that also plays out in the ENDSARS, because people were saying that, yes, you made some demands of government. They have considered, so why are you shifting goalposts? And they are saying, oh, we know we want a systemic overhaul. And they said, no, that is not, if that is what you want, then you are moving, you are shifting the goalpost from where everything all started. What else do you want? So for government, there are certain changes that matter. Yeah. For ENDSARS movement, there are certain changes that matter. So there is that context between them agreeing as to what matters in terms of the change of the character and the institution of Nigeria. So that is just that. So, but it can be, social change would be, of course, caused by population. So if we look at the demographic constitution of Nigeria, you'll see that we have over 60% population of youth. And they are almost going to be affected in all ways. One, every year, to the best of my knowledge, over 1.6 million would apply for to write university matriculation examination, this and that. But unfortunately, out of this over around 1.6, I think the last one was 1.8 million. Out of this population, only about 500,000 will eventually get admitted. Why? Because of the shrinking space and no investment in education. So you have 500 in 1 million just roving around the streets. So you think that those people that you are not paying attention to would be happy about a state that has been negligent. So you would have definitely people feeling strained from that. Of course, there is also the issue of technology, which could also be important in issue of driving social change. And that is what the government is still grappling with now. The ENDSARS movement showed government that you can achieve a lot deploying technology. In terms of mobilization of resources, in terms of mobilization of people, in terms of coordination, they brought to bear the issue of technology. And that is what is, of course, shaking these particular governments. And I think it is bad enough for the government not to annex these particular skills that they have seen in these people, particularly how to deploy technology. It is a waste of resources of Nigerians for a governor to move from Oyo State and then move to Abuja only to collect extra code when we can do Zoom meeting. I'm in my office in the UI. Motola is in US, and we have reduced cost. If she is to bring me to US, we will spend over $1 million going and back. And so that technology also, of course, facilitated change. What about the issue of conflict? There was an existing conflict between the established system of the SARS. Of course, there was a constant attack on the youth based on perceived allegation of a crime, most of the time not founded to be true. Torsion of the people, killing of the people, and all that. So you have a couple of all these factors coming to play. So social change will be driven by most of all these factors, and all of them actually worked during the 12 days of the ENDSARS movement. So we see people who are out. We are lecturers have been on strike for, if you remove the lockdown experience, it's almost 7 or 3 or 4 months now. And it was practically because of the ENDSARS movement that government woke up to start discussing with the union, ASU. And that is largely irresponsible and irresponsive to the needs of the people. So this is the kind of things that would continue to engender social change. But social movements are critical for us to have a social change. So the ENDSARS movement, if at all they have achieved one thing in terms of changing the narrative from a docile populace, for crying out loud, they have achieved what NLC cannot achieve. NLC was to challenge the increment in hike of fees, and then overnight, they said they had suspended it. The youth took up a particular battle, did not request money from the state, did not request money from politicians, were critical of any contributions that came to them to drive the agenda, and they also silenced any other agenda that runs contrary to the national ideals that they were pushing ahead. So I think the ENDSARS movement are agents of social change for the country, and I think that is why they will continue to agitate our minds over time. And I'm sure that the group will evolve over time, just like the OBS Ekwesili Aisha group that started with the Chibok girls and then moving. So, but social change, people have always talked about why is it that they have to change focus from ending SARS to other forms of abnormality, because it is systemic things. And so if you want to address police brutality and you are not attending to the institution that makes it impossible for us to have a responsible, if you have a policing system where people are killed at will, are extorted at will, are tortured at will, and no one is talking about it all this while, it means that a system is supportive of that kind of a thing. So when ENDSARS movements are talking about systemic overhaul, I think this is the direction they are looking at. And I'm sure with consistent pursuit of agenda like this, we'll get to where we are going.
Wow, interesting. Great, great. Mohammed, are you still with us? Yayandi, are you here with us? Okay, I think he too may be having some technical glitch. Now, Bonaventure, are you still with us here?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay.
I'm right here.
All right.
I'm
all
right
right.
here.
Bona, you have worked with people of different races in different countries and even continents of the world. What differentiates Nigerian youth from other young people in other across the world, not just the African countries? What differentiates Nigerian youth, and how can you really describe the pain of an average Nigerian youth?
So thank you very much again. I really do think these are very, very important questions that we are bringing up. And again, it's often said that questions are not answers, right? Give knowledge, right? Yeah. And, you know, I really want to thank Dr. Tade for those deeply insightful considerations. And again, some of the merits of this ENDSARS movement. For me as a person, I realized that in my experience across the continent, specifically, you know, in the African continent, in the US, I have realized that young people generally seem to always have that collective voice, right? Especially when it has to do with what I'll call the, what I call inveterate animosity. And by that, I mean a situation where there has been loads of evil, loads of what I call unattended problems, needs, and cravings. And you know, one thing that I have oftentimes found myself to be very, very interested in is the fact that an average young person, right, is not just a very powerful person who has the energy, the courage, and the resilience to do whatever it is they want to do. We have undermined the intelligence of young people. And I think that as much as it's important to leverage on the wisdom of the old, it would be a great disservice to neglect the intelligence that young people, especially the 21st century youth, have. And as Dr. Sade rightly said, we could see that in the art of organization and the art of leadership of the ENDSARS protest. And I'm talking in the context of Nigeria, for instance, right? I realized that for a good number of us, we saw many things, right? But the truth of the matter is that these people were one of the most organized protest movements I've seen in my whole life, right? And that is because I tell people that they had the Arab Spring, right? We had the Black Lives Movement of the United States, right? And majority of these protests, right, were championed by the young people. Did you know that Nigeria was built after a protest by the Nigerian youth then? A good number of them are leaders though. But the truth of the matter is that the power of the youth can never be underestimated. Because when it comes to resilience, when it comes to courage, when it comes to energy, we have it. But there's also one thing we're undermining: the intelligence of the young person to get things done when you give them the opportunity to. And so that's one thing I think I have seen across all spectrum, all continents. And I just want to echo the thoughts of Dr. Sade that we have technology at our hands right now. And by technology, both, formal technology, informal technology, social media, just name it. There's a quote that says that, there's this general quote that we already know that what an old man sees sitting down, a young man might never be able to know it and all of that, or be able to see it, yeah. But again, there was this thing I saw on social media, and I think you must have seen it. It says, even what the old man thinks he sees that the young man doesn't see, that with drones and technology, young people would even see that thing far off, things that the old man cannot see. What I'm trying to say in essence is that young people right now have the tools of technology. And that is one thing we know all over the continent, right? Everybody's online. I can tell you that if the world is about 8 billion, 60% of the world is the youth population right now. And in the African continent, the greatest asset we have is not oil. It's not mineral resource. It's the human capital. 80% of that human capital are young people. Anybody who denies the relevance of young people in governance is doing a great disservice to itself, especially right now, and even in the world to come. Let us check history. Some of the people who, look at the leaders that we have in the country today, most of them came in their early 20s, in their late 30s. The worry with that is that, and I mean, the good thing about that is that there is a merit in being young. And it means that when young people are given the capacity, the character, and the competence they need to take up leadership positions, they would deliver. But the worry with that is, if there is a system that promotes the continuous promotion of corruption, even the so-called good young men can become the next set of demons for our born children. All right? So I would tell you frankly that there is a lot of merit in understanding that young people generally have some of the best resilience, the courage, the intelligence, the organizing skills, the leadership competence and skill sets they need. We need to stop looking at young people as people who are just there. The 21st century young person, the millennials, right? The emerging young leaders of today are clear about what the new vision for a new Nigeria is. And I tell people, the future of this country is not in the hands of the old. It is in the hands of the young people. And it is not a cliche. It is because, look at this ENDSARS protest. The government had to wake up to the needs of the people because the young people came in numbers to talk about it. And I tell people, like, it's a pity that we lost a couple of people. And again, with all sense of sympathy, we condole and again, express our condolences to those who lost. But the truth of the matter is that in every revolution, in every fight, there are always casualties. But the worry about that is that when there are casualties in those kind of fights and protests, we would always have merit to those things. Now, I would say that for a good number of us, we need to begin to rethink on how best to invest, right, in the human capital of young people. What exactly is the problem with the leaders leaving power for young people? It's simple. And as we know, power corrupts. And sometimes absolute power corrupts absolutely. So there is something very toxic about power. So we need to begin to raise a new generation of leaders that are ethical, that understands the importance of integrity. All right? And we can learn that from some of the thriving democracies in the world, for instance. It's not about being young or being old. It's about competence. It's about delivering on the things that you have said you can do. And I told people that
Okay.
Okay.
I think we
I
lost
think we
Bona
lost
there.
Mona there.
Father
Father
Calvin, can you
Kelvin,
hear
can you hear
us?
us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, sorry. I
Okay,
think we
sorry, I
lost
think we lost
Bonaventure.
Bonaventure.
It is insightful
Insightful
words he's
words he's
giving us.
giving us.
Now, Father, let
Now,
me go
Father,
with
let
you.
me go with you.
Recently, there was
Recently,
a
there
twist
was a
to the
twist to
peaceful
the peaceful
protest, which we
protest,
all
which we
saw.
all saw.
With all that have been
With
going
all that
on,
have been
what
going
do you
on,
likely
what
foresee
do you
that could play
likely
out
foresee that could play
eventually?
out eventually?
Please, I didn't get you clearly.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm saying
Okay, I'm
that
saying that
recently
recently
there was a
there was a
twist
twist
to the
to the
peaceful
peaceful
protest
protest
we all
we all
had.
had.
Okay,
Okay,
what do you
what do you
Yeah.
likely
likely
foresee
foresee
could
could
be the
be the
end
end
of
of
the
the
whole
whole
thing? Like,
thing? Like,
what do you
what do you
likely
likely
foresee to
foresee
play
to
out
play out
eventually?
eventually?
I'm trying to get what you're saying, even though the line was echoing, especially the last part of your question. What do I likely,
Okay.
uh,
What do you likely
what do,
foresee, could be the end of this? Because, recently the protest was peaceful. It was going on seamlessly, but there was a twist. We saw when hoodlums invaded. We saw all that happened, including the Lekki tollgate shooting. In your own way, on your own thoughts, what do you likely foresee be the end of all of this?
oh, okay, I get you now. Uh, I think there is something that I would like to point out very clearly. The only thing that we must put into consideration is that this government, there is something about them.
Yeah.
This whole thing in ASU strike, NUT, NUPEG, NLC, what normally happens is this. When you come out for a strike, for protest, and then the next thing the government will be like, we have heard you. And you go back home, that same thing will continue. And this is systematic. This is a normal way that they come across.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I am proud is this: the ENDSARS did not just end or did not just go away, either because they were intimidated or they were, told that they should just go home and sit down, that things are going to be fine. No, it took bullets to dislodge them. It took the killing of people to be able to at least make us to at least not to come out to the streets. But that in itself is a problem because it will forever go in history that something that the government is supposed to be ashamed of or even protect the people, they went ahead to do what? To kill the people that they are supposed to protect. So this, for me, I feel generally that this protest that we are, that it is, where it's going to lead us or where it's leading us now, I see something new coming out of our country. Something new in the sense that each and every one of us will now have the ability to question things. There was a time when people like Desmond Elliot would have made those statements that he made, and people will not take any or see much issues with it. Yes, now you can't make those kind of statements and go without having people challenging you. There are times when people in the Senate will just sleep and do nothing. Now people may not likely just sit down and watch people do whatever they want to do. So I see a situation where every one of us, we are all waking up. We're waking up to the reality that that enough is enough. Every one of us is taking our destiny in our hands. We cannot we cannot be hoping that the greatest achievement young people should be making in the 21st century is that they are able to travel out of their country.
Wow.
I see that as an insult. So we should, the young ones are saying that, well, we can be here and build this country and build it the way that it should be. So for me, the future of Nigeria, as the previous speaker, Bonaventure, mentioned, is in the hands of the young ones. And now, more than ever before, they're now out to take this country into their hands. And I like the way that they are coming across. So for me, that is how I see. That's what I could say. The future of what will happen, how this protest will be. Now we are indoors. Now we are talking more about it. Now everybody is, different social media platforms, writings and all that, sensitizing people on things that are going on, the government, the nature of things that are happening, money that is being borrowed. People are now aware. When lies are being told, we know how it is. Even the whole issue of the Lekki and the people that have been put together to investigate it, we now see all the lies. We now see how things have been sold to us for years. And I know generally that it's not going to be normal again. Every one of us have woken up, and this whole idea that we have woken up is so beautiful to see. And I know that it's not going to come easy. Nigeria, as you see the way it is, it's not going to be beautiful. It's not going to come out easily tomorrow. Yeah. It is either the government takes this opportunity to restructure things and put things into perspective, especially with regards to what the young ones are requesting, or they watch Nigeria implode on itself. Yeah. You see everything will just go off. That is the reality of what it is. It's either this, it is restructured to accommodate the Nigerians as Nigerians, or they just sit and watch how everything will implode on its own. And I know that if they don't do one will happen. There is no two ways about it. And if that will happen, then you can have another situation where many other possibly countries may come out of Nigeria. That could be another option or offshoot from Nigeria not being restructuring. There is absolutely no other way towards this whole thing except we restructuring. And when Bonaventure talked about Nigerians having about 80% of 80% of our resources or whatever is in our human capacity, we are seeing we cannot tap into this 80% of our human resources if we do not restructure the country in the way that it should be. And if you don't channel these resources, these human resources, if you don't channel it positively, it can be turned around negatively. And that is exactly why you see the government, the people they listen to now these days are terrorists. These are the people that they pay off. Once they see that you have a gun and you're a terrorist, they will listen more to you. And they will call you for on the table and negotiate with you. And it seems that is what they want, because if the impression they are giving on their release of Boko Haram or Fulani herdsmen or some other people, releasing them and also even giving them some kind of incentive, they are already sending a message that the people that they listen to are terrorists. The protesters who are just peaceful on their own protests are not listened to. So that is why it is either we take this particular moment to restructure our country to be the way that it should be, or we watch it and see how this country will just bust.
Interesting. Mr. Motola, I have an important question for you as well, but let me ask Dr. Tade this question. Dr. Tade, beyond insinuations and speculations, it was very obvious that hoodlums hijacked the protests. Dr. Tade, what could have been done differently to avert what happened on October 20? What could have been done differently to avoid the outcomes of that Lekki toll gate shooting?
I'm not sure that hoodlums hijacked the protest before the protesters were attacked.
Okay.
The sequence of events, to the best of my knowledge, was the attack triggered the violent outburst in other parts of the state, not necessarily even by those that were attacked, because that was. And if you see, it's good to analyze the context at which the thing took place, because at a particular point in time, there was this information that was shared everywhere that if you held the national flag, you were not going to be shot at by the military, because it means that you believed in the country. So that was what the protesters did. They held on to the national flag, sang the national anthem, and sat down there. Yeah, that could have been a sort of affront on the stage. But they got that information. Someone already passed that information that there is likely going to be something of that particular nature, and that they should prepare ahead. And people started, even in Ibadan here, people started holding on to the national flag, which is symbolic enough to pass a message that we are not interested in the balkanization of the country, but we want the ordered country. And that made me cry, because even when the shooting occurred, I still heard people singing national anthem.
Exactly.
So I heard people, so I could not, there was never a day I felt that bad this year, not even when everything was on lockdown and life was almost not going possible again. But that particular night, and then I realized that, oh, these were people who believed so much in the country and wanted something unique for the country. But I think it was a leadership gap. It was a leadership gap, and I think it is also a wrong policy direction for most states. And you would realize that it is only in states where they declared curfew that you had that level of destruction.
Exactly.
Nobody went destructive until that callous attack on the peaceful protesters, because the Lekki and protesters were the most organized, as far as I'm concerned, of all the protesters, because they were that peaceful. Are you talking about people so organized to the extent that they ensured that wherever they had their protest and everything was cleaned up, even when in the generality of the states where you had people being paid for it, streets are dirty. But these people ensured that they cleaned the dirt that were left behind, and then they start another day. So I think the approach that the governor of Lagos State ought to have taken, beyond going to the president, was also to physically march to those locations and then talk to them, talk to the protesters, about the need, because a lot of things happened. Yes, we could blame the state, but also sociological observation from my end also is that, you see, the protest for the first 5 or 6 days went on smoothly, but of course it was also taking a toll on the livelihood of everyday survivalists. And that was where the hoodlums were forced to join. Apart from those that were sponsored, movements were stalled. So it means that interstate transportation could not go. Those that would go on 4 trips could not even complete one. So it means that they had livelihood challenges. So there were backlashes. Families were also feeling the pain. The area boys that eventually became the arsonists, also depended on smooth flow of transportation to collect their own daily contribution and then continue with their life. But their spaces were encroached by the protests. While they could not chase the protesters away, apart from those that were sent to dislodge the protesters, and they were also in an organized manner chased back. But there are also the other segment of people who are working daily, but whose livelihood were also caught by the protest because of the occupation of roads, and many of us were affected along that line. So that created a new form of insurgent citizenship, where people came a government on their own. And then so if the governor of, for instance, Lagos State, before making pronouncement of curfew, pronouncement of curfew, had approached the protesters and then also continue to engage with them before doing that. And I think it would have had a more understanding and human face, sufficient enough to make those people see reasons to leave this space, because they thought, for me, they thought that, okay, the state only wanted them out of the streets, and then the following day, the place will be occupied by security men, and then they will not be able to go back to the streets, and then see to the realization and implementation of what the government promised. So I think it is a problem of trust gap.
Yeah.
Government are not, could not be trusted, and then the youth, understanding and having lived for at least 15 years consistently in Nigeria, understood it well, that they have done for different unions. They have done for Medical Association of Nigeria. Many of them are still pursuing agreements of many years ago, not implemented. ASU on their own. NLC has it. For crying out loud, it took NLC over a year to even get 30,000 minimum wage signed by the federal government. Not all the states are implementing it, even at the moment. So you have all this, and the youth are not stupid. So they are not people who do not have that information. They are sufficiently schooled. They understand what is obtainable elsewhere. We all travel, and we know what happens elsewhere. So trust gap. If government had been able to build trust, affected or made the protest last that long. If, for instance, even before the governor of Lagos, it even went to meet them, it was more than this.
Exactly.
The president was not also proactive enough to even address the issue on time. So all this shows that these people are not changing. They are not going to their character. It's like a leopard that will not change its spot.
Wow.
That was what actually led us. So if we had done that, I think we would have been able to avert that particular tragedy, and we would not now be talking about that one. And then, although following that attack, the comments that were coming from states and all those ones are also not empathetic. They are not also empathetic, and not things that people would say, oh, is it worth it to die for a country like this? And then you see the old generation tacitly supporting the movement, and then only resorting to, okay, there is no need for you to continue with this. Of course, yes, the context matters. We should also understand that people who become victims of situations like this also deserve some form of recognition.
Exactly.
And that is what we lack. We lack victim restitution, compensation, and the rest of them here. Once everything happens, life continues, and then we forget those
Then
who
they
are paid
forget.
at the ultimate,
Exactly. Mm,
it, including the security, and including those whose livelihood were affected
exactly.
by the entire crisis.
Well, I just hope that we don't forget in a hurry all that have happened. You know, all you've said just triggered some level of emotions in me right now, especially that Lekki incident. You know, at that point where they were singing the national anthem and they were being shot. Oh my God, I really cried that I've never felt so sad. And I mean, what you just said so much bring those memories again. And I hope that their souls continue to rest in peace and their labors may never be in vain. We are gradually rounding up this conversation, but Father Kelvin, let me quickly ask you this question. What is the psychology of looting? We all know that the people up there, be they politicians or people in leadership position, they loot. Now, what is the linkage between these top looters and bottom of the pyramid looters? Because all looting is looting, but what is the linkage between the top looters? Because now it's like there are classification of looters. We have the top looters and the bottom of the pyramid looters. What is the linkage between the two of them?
Well, there are a whole lot of reasons why people may loot. Uh, the chief among them will be greed. And, greed has a way of making people just keep gathering and keep gathering and keep gathering. So, and this actually is the beginning of it all. And it will now move to every other aspect. So the first aspect, if I want to analyze the whole issue of greed, I will analyze it in a situation where you see one politician having a whole lot of vehicles that he may not drive, have a lot of money in the account that definitely he can't exhaust. And when you see somebody have up to a billion naira in his account, and you analyze how much you can spend a day. Let's say if you want to spend 1 million in a month or 10 million in a month, you know that in a year you have not even gone half of that money that you have in the account. But you see one person has it more than you can imagine. So now the realization that that money is our money will now lead to those whom we can call the poor masses to want to do and take their own too once they see the opportunity. So that is why, it begins from top and then it goes down to every other person. The civil servant who is working wants to take the opportunity to, this is now my own time. If I don't gather it for myself now, then definitely I may not have this opportunity again. And you can use the example of the palliative that Nigerians discovered within that period as a case study. And why will I say as a case study? Why we are blaming a particular government for hoarding the palliative and keeping it for themselves, when the Nigerian masses, when we discovered that there were some warehouses that these things were stored, what was their reaction? Everybody had to go there and pick. And one person had to carry close to what should be enough for 10 persons. That is the mentality that we have. The mentality that it is just your own. We are not having this kind of communal aspect of living. You're your own. So this is how the looting, or what you could call looting, usually go on. Greed. Then another thing is that when there is no system to checkmate all these things, when people know that they can do something and get away with it, they will continue. It is because human nature is always, greedy, so to say. Unless maybe the person is so refined, which takes a lot. That is why you have all the laws. That is why you have all the people trying to check and balance, situations. So once there is nothing like check and balancing, a government can steal amount of money and come to the Senate House and while he's being probed, he just faints. And that is the end of the story. Nobody is going to follow up again. Nothing is going to be asked again. So why will you blame the Kogi State Commissioner that came out to start crying that, for example, the whole thing that was happening in the state, I will cost them a lot of money, which is a subtle way of saying we cannot afford to even put things together again. So why will you blame a lot of people who, there is nothing that is shaking the system. And even if there is any, those people too who are supposed to check the system are also in that way, getting their own share. So that is why you can have that story of the NDC where that went viral about off your mic. What is it trying to say to you? That if you probe him further, all of us will be indicted. So it's better don't talk, because one way or the other, we are also part of it. So the chain system has made everybody not to have any moral authority over any other person. So when you want to say something, you look at yourself. Even we, the priests and pastors, we are also there. Because sometimes you want to talk about this, somebody will remind you how you too, you are benefited from the government. And the government has a way of doing that same thing, where they will come to you, give you some inciting, even pay social things to you, and then you keep quiet. So, as I said, the major aspect is greed. The second aspect is the fact that there is nothing like anybody checking this or checking that, because virtually everyone is involved.
Yeah.
And then it goes back to my first opening statement, the value. Our value system has actually gone down. There were days in Nigeria where if you are driving on the road, those who are selling tubers of yam or selling fruits or selling anything on the road, you don't need to be there to sell to you. All they need to do is just what? Sample your goods or sample your tubers of yam on the street, on the road, put the price tag. Somebody who is driving and he wants to buy, he goes in there, stop, look at the price tag, put the money there, carry what he wants to carry, and he goes. Nobody goes to touch the money. Nobody, the person will not pay less, even if the person will not pay less, or he may even pay more. And we are safe that way. But you can't try it today. In fact, if you put your goods there without being there, somebody is going to come and take them. And in fact, somebody will drive in there and take those things without paying anything. That is true. This is to tell you that our value system has gone down. Because again, what do we even preach? We, the ministers, how to get rich, how to get popular, how to make it, favor follow you, prosperity is your own. This year, connections, you are going to get all the connections. So the values that we're supposed to preach, we are not preaching them. So everybody is what? Once you are successful, once you are rich, God is with you. That is what it means. So it doesn't matter the way that you use in getting that money. That's why somebody who will defraud somebody or a scammer or the people you call Yahoo Yahoo will make a lot of money and come to the church to pay money and donate one thing, and nobody is going to question them. And that is why when the whole issue of, what is that his name? Pop Daddy, Push Daddy, I've forgotten. Forgotten the name of that guy that was arrested in Dubai. So, when those people make money like that and they post on social media.
Hush puppy.
Yeah, thank you so much. When they make money like that and post on social media, when they post, for example, their cars and their worth or whatever, what happens? You see Christians commenting, I tap into your blessings. I tap into your prosperity. I tap into whatever. So it is the value system. That is the third aspect. Then we can look into the final aspect, possibly, why people loot also, into what I would call the poverty mentality. poverty mentality is something that affects every one of us, especially if you have not getting out of that mentality. There is this popular story of some Nigerians that went abroad for seminar, and at every meal they will serve them enough apples. Every meal they will serve enough apples. So Nigerians, when they finish eating, what do? They will take some apples to their hotel room. When they come back for the next meal, they will remove all those apples and serve fresh ones that will be more than enough apples. So the Nigerians, they were like, these people are wasting this apple. Let us carry some again to our hotel room. And that is how they keep carrying. Any meal they come, they will do away with those old ones and bring fresh ones again. And those Nigerians will do what? Wow, these people are useless. Let us, in fact, we have paid this our money. Let us eat it. So they will eat and still carry more to go and keep in their hotel room. Before they finish the seminar of about a week, their hotel room is filled with apples. Until they now discover that every meeting they go, every time they go for a meal, there is fresh apple. And what happened? They stopped taking apples because the ones that they already kept in their hotel room already going bad. They had to throw them away. Mm. That is a mentality. The mentality of you are trying to save for tomorrow because you feel if you don't do it tomorrow, you cannot do it again. So even when you have right now, when you are in the government right now, and you are the governor, all what you'll be thinking is, I may not have this opportunity again. Then I carry even more than what I need, and then I will save it. It's poverty mentality. It is not, it is the way poor people think. Mm-hmm. When things are available, you know that you can live at every day. You are not going to live forever, definitely. Yeah. But the way people amass things shows that what are they thinking about? Tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow. But they keep gathering what will be more than enough for tomorrow. But they don't also remember that there are a lot of people that are. So in summary, we can say greed is a major aspect for looting.
Yeah.
Once you cannot remove that because people are greedy. Mm-hmm. People will continue to loot once they are greedy. And because we are greedy, if we don't have system that will check our greed, then people will continue to loot.
Yeah.
If you have the opportunity, you will loot. If a policeman has an opportunity to ask you for whatever, he will ask you. That's why SACS, they will ask you to even send the account number, or send them money in the account number. If you have the opportunity, they will loot. If there is nothing checking it, then we go into the aspect of our value.
Yeah.
Our value system is down. Yeah. Let us tell ourselves the truth. We don't think about another person. We don't think about anything valuable. What we are all preaching these days is how to be rich, how to be wealthy. This is the consciousness we have put in our youth, unfortunately. So that is why people will go in there. That is why I'm still afraid. If our value system is not revisited, even when you put somebody in there as a senator or a young person, something will still create in him that mentality that, well, it is now my opportunity. Let me reach, feel wealthy. So that aspect is very important. Then the final aspect I talked about is poverty mentality. Mm-hmm. The poverty mentality should be replaced with abundance mentality. When you have abundance mentality, you are sure that, well, I have this food today, I eat today, I know that tomorrow God is going to provide. That is why the Lord's Prayer will say, give us this day our daily bread. Not give us these days. Yeah. So each day at a time. Mm-hmm. Whatever you have should be content. You should be contented with it. You are beginning to build your poverty mentality and changing it to abundance mentality. If we do that, a lot of things about looting will go down. I will not take what belongs to you. If I see that carton of Indomie were there as palliative, that is actually meant for all of us, I will take my own one carton. And then I'll give you space to come and take your own 1 carton. Another person will come and take his own 1 carton. And then I will remember again, oh, there is one old woman in my street. She's too old, she cannot come and take this carton. And then I say, please, if you remember that old woman in our area, I want to take 1 carton for her. That is the value.
Yeah.
Value system. If we don't have it, we don't have it. Nigeria used to have it. And I can tell you that it's there in all of us. It has nothing to do with religion, Christianity, or we have a lot of value to life, to things, but we have lost it because a lot of us these days get rich. Once you are rich, you are valued.
Yeah.
A SARS will not attack somebody who is very wealthy, who can pay his way. A politician who has a lot, SARS will not, oh, yes, anything for the boys, that is all. But those who are struggling, those who possibly may not have anything, those are the ones that they so everybody wants to have value, because we have changed our value system to material things, to what you're able to occupy, like political position. Exactly. That is why everybody is now fighting for political position or fighting for money. So that once I get money, once I get political position, I will become somebody of value.
Exactly.
But if we're able to turn it around to say, it is not political position, neither is it material wealth that makes you a man or a woman of value, then our quest for money, our quest for political position will go down drastically.
Exactly.
And this must be something that even we, the ministers, should continue to preach. We talk about this value and put it into the head of each and every one of the young ones.
You know, Father, value is really, really very important, and I'm glad you're really taking out time to tease these issues out. Because I remember growing up, we watched out for each other, you know, because our parents then made us believe that without the other, you cannot be. And I actually don't know where we begin to get it wrong. This aspect of individualism as against the kinship system that Africa deeply has in them. And I'm going to ask one at this question, the importance of value and reconscientization at national level. But before I do that, Father, you made mention of something talking about narrative, and then how poverty is lethal, how it's like a weapon of mass destruction. Mr. Motala, I want to ask you now, what is the power of narrative? Because poverty to me is intrinsically linked with narratives. For instance, the legislators, they fight in the house. And when they fight in the house, they don't cease to call them honorables. They still retain their titles and they're still called honorables. But when an ordinary Nigerian who is peaceful, even fighting for his own right, fighting against injustice and bad governance, when he or she begins to speak out, the labeling changes, the narrative changes. Now, if this can affect our psyche, if this can affect the way we perceive the poor versus the rich, Mr. Motala, can you tell us how narrative, the power of narrative for social change?
Okay, thank you very much. That's a very powerful question. And I would begin with saying that no one can tell your story the way you can. And you cannot outsource the responsibility of sharing your own perspective to someone else. So you don't expect, you see, even if you speak to a lawyer to argue a case for you in court, you need to provide the background for that argument to be strong and powerful. The lawyer would only shape what you share, right?
Yeah.
But he can't say, I mean, but if you do not provide that background, then the lawyer just says whatever he likes. Social justice, I like the two words, is an active word, it's not a passive word. Social justice suggests also that there has been injustice and there is a desire for justice. Social justice suggests that there is a breakdown in how the relationship should be or should run. And there is a demand or a request for a better way of doing things.
Yeah.
So if I have to tie that to how we shape our stories or how we tell our stories, I would say culturally in Africa, we have a measure of regard for authority figures or an older people that has been drummed into our psyche that does not make you call out someone who has done wrong simply because the person occupies a higher position or is older than you. And so even when, maybe even your parents or someone who is in authority or your boss, you're careful not to expressly let it be clear that he has done wrong and he should be accountable. And that is what the honorables in the House of Assembly or the Senate feel confident about. Two is the issue of poverty. A lot of people are not able to call out those who are supposed to represent them because they still see these honorables and senators not as public servants, but as their benefactors. And so the honorable is justifying his stealing by saying, well, I have to pay. I listened to one of the members of House of Assembly in Lagos, I can't remember who said, well, after all, I still pay school fees for some people, I pay medical bills. And he mentioned all of those things, justifying why they have so much humongous allocations. So how do we see ourselves? Citizens vote in representatives to represent them, but the Nigerian citizen does not necessarily see himself or herself as powerful enough to even vote out that your representative. It's how we were raised. I don't know if you participate in politics or listen to the rhetorics of politics, even local politics, it's about what you can benefit. If someone gets an appointment today and the person happens to be from your village or your environment, the first thing you're asking is what contract can I get out of this person? So we are collectively responsible for where we are. We cannot blame our leaders alone. We have empowered corruption. We have normalized corruption. And because we have, as a collective body of citizens, normalized it and explained it away, those who are in the position to exploit also take advantage of that. That being said, the education needs to begin at home and in schools.
Yeah.
I say at home and in schools, parents need to model the behavior that they want to see in society. You can't be a father who collects bribe, a custom officer who collects, proceeds of corruption from the ports, or an immigration officer who collects bribes, and your children know about this, and then you, on the other hand, want to have a posture of righteousness. The two can't agree. We have people in the civil service. I'm trying to spread this as much as possible. We have people in the civil service who put in their own children who are 15, 16. I had a classmate like that, 15, 16. I think the father puts them as, they started earning salaries. Those are the ghost workers we look out for. And by the time this person is maybe in their 30s or 40s, they have technically have been in service for what, 15 years? This is not government, these are citizens. So we are the ones who are destroying ourselves and creating or facilitating an environment that makes it difficult for you to call out the leaders, whether it's the honorables or the senators, when they do wrong, because you are also a beneficiary of that corruption. So at home, we need to identify what are our real values, what are the things that are important to us, and what kind of nation do we want to build. No nation can be successfully built on not just corruption, but lack of values. What are the things that we value? What are the things that are important to us? You know, we need to collectively explain to people that hard work is good and that things take time and it's okay to fail. The challenge is that the reason why we have a lot of people stealing government money, they're not stealing for themselves. They're stealing for 3, 4 generations. And that's because, you see, the same citizens who complain that they steal are the same citizens who are going to boo them when they get out of office and 3 or 4 years down the line, because they didn't have any business before they got into office. They were living on allocations and federal money. The same citizens are going to insult them like, oh, how come you were in office for 3, 4 years and you now all of a sudden you don't have a building? You used to live in Victoria Island. Wow. And now you have to move to Ayobo in Ikpaja. Those kind of conversations that have nothing to do with your competencies, your skills. You know, it's all about Naira and Kobo. We need to change those conversations. We need to honor and respect people who have competence and character. Character education needs to be taught, ethics needs to be taught in school, in things like civic education, social studies. Also at the family level and in society, we need to have role models who we can emulate, whose behavior is repeatable. By repeatable, I mean we can trace a trajectory. So young IT professionals can study about those who pioneered the technology revolution and see, what did this person do right? What did this person do wrong? How can I improve on this problem? In democracy, in politics, in Nigeria, how many politicians even have resources that you can read on? You know, what resources can you study and say, well, this is what governance means? Things about community mobilizing and organizing.
Yeah.
Where are those resources? They don't exist. How do you build? I know that people speak a lot about the former governor of Lagos State and a lot of the things that a lot of people are unhappy about, some of the control that he has. But one thing you can't take away is his ability to organize. And it's the ability to organize that, to a large extent, is giving him loyalty of 2 dispensations, as it were. Those are skills we need to learn. How do you organize your community? How do you organize your state? How do we build collaborations? How do we build coalitions? Understanding that communities need to have community centers where young people can leverage the collective wisdom of their community.
Exactly.
So you live in an environment, you don't even know your neighbor. And then we speak about the ward chairman, and then you speak about the local government chairman. A lot of the educated people, I'm sorry to say, are very ignorant. So we pontificate online, but offline, you are not participating association, and that's because it's compulsory, because you live in that environment. You know, what do you know about so citizenship education is important.
Important, exactly.
All of that needs to tie into the kinds of stories that we tell. So when we need to call out a representative, we will be calling out a representative from a position of knowledge,
Yeah.
from a position of data, from a position of information. You know, people talk, our roads are bad. Yeah, but do you know how much was allocated? We don't study the budget. We don't know how much was allocated. So you can't even hold them accountable. You check the Lagos State, Alimosho, which is very underdeveloped that way, as it were, has the highest allocation of federal resources. I mean, federal allocation, but 6.4 billion is allocated to Alim Mosho. Yet, there's little or no improvement in the area. Majority of people still wallow in poverty. Yet, that's the area in Lagos that determines who is the next governor because of during elections, because of the population. So we need to get off our high horses. We need to transition from online to offline, and then learn what we can all offline and come back to amplify that narrative online. Nobody can tell you a story. For example, live in back in Nigeria, I live in Ishere Osun. Ishere Osun is a local rural community, as it were. It's in Alimosho local government. But I speak also as one who, I grew up there, my parents live there, but I didn't really fully understand the environment until I started community work there. I started engaging the people in conversations, started visiting the local government, understanding, okay, these are the plans of the government, understanding, okay, how many wards are there and which ward is my environment under. Those are conversations we need to have. I recall there are also opportunities that you don't even get to know about because you're not proud, you're just not interested. I had a hairdresser friend, she's been my friend for years, who is the one who constantly lets me know about opportunities with Lagos State. And that's because she was an active member of a political party. That tells you that even though this information is publicly available for all citizens of Lagos, because she happens to be actively involved in the party, she would hear it first. The information is online. It's publicly available. There are lots of trainings available with the Federal Ministry of Women, with the Ministry of Women Affairs, Lagos State, Ministry of Youth. There are several youth centers across Lagos that a lot of Lagosians are not even aware of. And I speak also as one who was ignorant of this until 2018 when I needed to do a job around Onikon. And I found out Onikon Youth Center. Onikon Youth Center is located in Lagos Island. They have access to, there you have Wi-Fi. And I tell you, we're paying as little as 1,000 naira per month. Huh? To have my team members work. Each person was paying 1,000 naira per month, and then we're able to do our work within that space. It was a project we worked on for a while. I did not know about it. One of my team members found it. Now, there are lots of these youth centers scattered around Lagos, but many of the youths don't even know these spaces exist. And so if you don't even know these spaces exist, how do you leverage that opportunity? And in these spaces, there's so many trainings going on. So you see, we can't afford to be ignorant. We can't just keep blaming people. We need to take responsibility. So every young person who is listening, become an active citizen. Don't be passive. Don't wait for things to come to you. Don't wait for things to come to you. Find who is my local government chairman? What is his name? What is her name? Who is my counselor? And that's how you hold them accountable. That's how you call their attention. That's how they know that they work for you. We can't just keep blaming them. People don't know. You need to, you need to study. So if I speak of Lagos because that's where I used to live. If you're a resident in Lagos, what do you know about Lagos? What do you know about the youth, the Ministry of Youth and Youth and Social Development? What opportunities are available for you? How can you engage them? A lot of venues are open where meetings and conversations can happen. But because you don't even know they exist, you can't even engage those facilities. And then you have to raise money to pay for big halls, and that won't be filled because people don't get to know about your events. So let's begin. What are the resources that are available, that are around us already, that we can leverage on? That's my contribution. I think let me stop here.
That's great. That's great. Apparently, the issue of values is coming out strongly. The importance of family units, the importance of citizenship education, the importance of civic rights, the importance of mentoring and coaching, they are all coming out strongly. And I think this core important point is actually providing a leeway for us to gradually round up this dialogue. We have a lot to talk about, but time is fast spent, and I think we should begin to round up. This dialogue doesn't end today, it continues. It's a series. And on that note, I will give room to everybody to give us their final words on this. Apparently, we all know that everybody cannot enter the negotiation room. There is room for strategy. There's a place for new ideology. There is a place for dialogue. There is a place for mentorship at this point in time. At this point in time, we also do not need people who are linear thinkers. We need people who are lateral thinkers, people who can think ahead, people who knows what it means to respond to situation and have emergency preparedness methodologies. Talking about young people leading us is not just about the chronological age per se. We need people who are fresh, whose ideas are fresh, people who have skills that are in demand. We need people who are localized, and by localization, I mean the fusion of globalization and localization. People who are able to think global and people who can also act global at the same time. We also need to pick up trust wherever we left them, even if not in our leaders, but amongst ourselves. At this point, we need to start thinking of bringing in experts in strategies, experts in negotiations, experts in activism, professionals with excellent track records, to lead us in this dialogue and, to further negotiate with those powers that be. We also have to come up with a common ideology that is beyond ethnic, religious, social, and cultural sentiment. We just need to push forward. We need to raise more young people to come up on board. Before I allow everybody to say one last word in relation to the new Nigeria we all look forward and propose, I want to let us know that we have enormous potentials in Nigeria. The population pyramid of Nigeria undoubtedly shows enormous number of young persons. We have heard the panelists talk about the importance of technology, this technological age, what Murtala will also call the iPhone or phone pressing generation. We can leverage on that. Bona also said that we shouldn't neglect the wisdom of the old, but we should not also despise intelligence of the young people. Father Kelvin made mention of, avoiding greed, embracing values, nationhood, loving each other. And Dr. Tade spoke extensively on the sociological linkages of all that have been happening in society. Every point we've raised in this dialogue is highly intellectual, and there's a whole lot to take away. And in fact, it also leads us to further discussion, because I've been teasing out more issues beyond even what I thought it could be. Now, to anybody listening also who will come across this conversation or dialogue as it is, we appreciate everybody who has been listening so far, and we continue to hope that the levels of our heroes past will not be in vain. We all have responsibilities as Nigerians, from our homes to our communities, to our society, to our nation, to the international community. We need to begin to change the narratives. Enough should be done on wherever you see Nigerians, you see them as criminals. Nigerians are intellectuals. Nigerians are brilliant. Nigerians are intelligent. Nigerians are technocrats. Nigerians has the capacity to lead Africa and to lead the world. But it starts now. We are talking about the upcoming election. And it will be so unfortunate if at the end of the day and all that have happened, you still don't have your voter's card. Voters registration will soon start, perhaps next year or thereabouts. The responsibility is on you to go and get your voters to get yourself registered to vote in the next election. That is your power. We cannot continue to say like Omotala will come online, say a lot of things, but offline, we know nothing. And I was once a victim, because up until a few years ago, I didn't even know the importance of local government. And it's so unfortunate that local government in some areas are just so still and static that it's as if nothing is happening. But that is actually where the power resides, because they are the ones that are closest to the grassroots, where we have the greater percentage of people residents, because greater percentage of people, or about more than 50%, are residents in the rural areas. And this local government chairman and vice chairman, they all have access to these people. To what extent do we demand accountability from them? To what extent do we sit and hold town meeting with them and say, sir, please, what are the projects? What do you propose for us? Nigerian youth, we need to wake up. And when I mean youth, it's not just people between age range. We need everybody to come on this round table to talk. This Nigerian project has already begun, and it starts now. Anybody that cannot key into this revolution happening now will definitely miss out in future. But let me stop here. Let me start with you, Father Kelvin. What is the new Nigeria that you propose, and what is the way forward? And then I'll let all other panelists just give us one or two words to the new Nigerian we all propose and we all envisage, and how can we get there? Just briefly before we round up.
Thank you so much, and thank you for this opportunity. Uh, and also, thanks to all those who have contributed, because there's a whole lot of things that myself too have learned. Generally, the new Nigeria that we all look forward to is where our values will be respected as human person, where each and every one of us will have a life, security, normal things, basic amenities, normal things that even here in Malawi, we have, like 24 hours electricity here. I mean, this is a country that is regarded as one of the poorest in the world. These are the normal things that we're all seeking for. And we have all those resources in Nigeria. So I pray for a Nigeria where each and every one of us will be able to actualize our potentials and live happily in the way that God has created us to live. That is the kind of Nigeria that I pray for. I know it is possible. I know we are not asking for too much. And I hope it will happen in my own time, in my own generation.
Sure.
Because I can see that it's already a movement that I've already started.
Exactly. In Nigeria, where the son of nobody will become somebody without knowing anybody. Mr. Motola.
Closing remarks. Yeah, my closing remarks will be first, thank you very much for providing this opportunity for all of us to have this very important conversation. I'm grateful to every panelist. I've learned so much from you, and I was actually writing all through this session. I also want to thank every attendee who has taken time off their very busy schedule to be here. That being said, my closing remarks will be, there is hope. My closing remarks will be, what we saw at the ENDSARS protest was a preview of what is possible. And so we should not see the temporary setback as a setback, but actually a preview of the future. So I see that we can come together if we have an issue that we agree on. We can see that we can have excellent people get things done. So all those who are mobilizing offline and online, seen across various divides, but just seeing humanity. For me, that's hope. I also want to encourage us to not give up. Understand that there will be challenges to the goal. No important or difficult goal is ever easy. No vision is accomplished with ease. If we asked for ENDSARS and they gave ENDSARS and that was it, then it means that it was not such a big deal. The fact that there has been a significant opposition, and as I was reading earlier today, that some people's accounts have been frozen, gives us the scale of the kind of problem that we have to deal with. When you meet opposition, what do? You innovate, you step back, you re-strategize, you think through, what can we do better? I would say the first 12 days of ENDSARS was very powerful. The interruption on the 13th day was what literally caused the looting. I wanted to say the protest, but not the protest, the lootings. And personally, I still think that the lootings were a distraction from the main issue.
Exactly.
So we need to stay focused. How come all of a sudden we're discovering palliative warehouses all over the place? That's really strange, if you ask me. I think they saw that Nigerians were feeding Nigerians on the streets, and government saw, oh, these people are hungry, and literally opened up this. So whatever it is he said on camera, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I think it was strategically opened and to distract people. And so people have food, but for how long? I see hope. I see that we can rebuild. I see that natural leaders will emerge. And the fact that natural leaders will emerge is actually very powerful, because we did not need anybody's permission to lead. people-led prayer walks, people-led people groups, people-led legal assistance, food assistance, medical assistance, offline and online. I see possibilities, and that excites me, that we can work together to rebuild this country from the ruins in which it lays. And by God's grace, the nation that would hand over to our children will not hand over poverty as an inheritance to our children's children.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Great.
everyone.
Great. Bonaventure, before Dr. Tade.
I
Bonaventure.
really do think my mind is blown away. Like, I don't know, man. This is one of the greatest conversations I think I've had this year, right? And so, again, just to echo the gratitude of some of the speakers, I really want to say thank you to all the panelists, Judith, to you for this amazing and beautiful thoughts that we've been able to galvanize. And I'm happy that it's recorded so that people can, watch it again. It can be shared on all our platforms. It can be a learning opportunity for a lot of people, right? I think that the Nigeria that I want to envisage, or that I want to see rather, is a Nigeria that has its narrative right, and a nation that is the most desirable place to live. I did not say a country, a nation. A nation is an expression of a people who have collective values, collective resources, collective opportunities, and collective aspiration. I see a nation where, Nigeria is one of the most desirable nations to live in the world. If any of us have seen Black Panther, all right, we know what Wakanda looks like, right? I mean, as much as it's non-fictional and it's a movie, it depicts exactly what the Black man aspiration is, in this case, the African Americans, what it feels like to have, Black technology, Black governance, Black power, Black resources, right? Why can't we have a nation where everything is ingenious to us? It is developed from within, it is produced from within. I see a nation where, the most productive resources in the world, the most important resources in the world are made from this country and exported to the world. I really want to say that as a people, we need to have that hope. As Omotola has rightly said, that hope is all we have. If we read the book of the great leader, my boss, The Audacity of Hope, President Barack Obama, he will tell you how hope is one of the greatest weapons we can use to defeat, poverty, despair, and lack of accountability in governance. Look at what's happening in the US, right? There is a lot happening in the US right now, and there's a lot. I feel like there's a lot to learn, right? If there are great institutions that work to promote, citizen participation, it makes governance even easier. There are institutions in place, and I'm not in support of any sort of violence in when it comes to marches and protests and everything. I believe that everybody needs to be more organized to get things done, right?
Yeah.
And we can see that in most parts of the world. It's not like there's a perfect system, but once there are strong institutions, we've gotten it right. So we need to begin to think about building those strong institutions. And I really appreciate what Dr. Tade and Father Kelvin and Omotola has said. Most of these, recommendations, most of this, what is it called? Yeah, most of these ideas would help us build those institutions we need. I would say one very good way to do this is to make sure we get our PVC, right?
Yeah.
We'll be like a toothless bulldog, right? If we continue to talk about these things, but the most important decision-making factor of our lives, which is to vote, we do not do that. It's a total discredit of everything we've ever believed. And I always believe that if you do not cast your vote, the vote will be casted against you. And someone rightly said, evil thrives, right, when good people keep quiet.
Yeah.
And what that means is that I even feel that one of the greatest crimes against humanity is not the action of the bad people, but it's the inaction of the good people. And so I tell people that this ENDSARS protest was a wake-up call to all the so-called people of great character, the ethical people, to wake up and fight evil for what it is. If you do not stand up to take power, if you do not stand up to be evil, if you do not stand up to start doing the right things, evil will thrive. It's like a cancer. If you do not nip it in the bud, it will continue to thrive. And so I think that this protest has a great merit. It's a wake-up call. It's to tell us that a lot can be done when we are conscious of our needs and our collective resources, when we come in unity to get things done. I will end on this final note, right? There's a concept and theory of the great, I call him great because it's also one of those people who are trying to rewrite the African narrative. His
Yeah.
name is Tony Elumelu.
Illumelu,
Tony
yeah.
Elumelu said, and I quote, that we need to begin to develop a philosophy, and that's talking about value orientation and ideological birthing, a philosophy that empowers Africans to develop African-based solutions for the African people. He
Exactly.
called it the Africapitalism, right?
Okay.
An economic and prosperity philosophy that trains Africans to develop African and home-based ideas, products, and services that is contextual to the needs of the African people. It could come in form of business. It could come in form of religion. It could come in form of agriculture. It could come in all strata of the economy that is contextual to our needs. Next, we must begin to think of how we can marry our deep cultural values with the ultimate requirements of democracy, right? As Africans, we are naturally communal people. You know the whole philosophy of Ubuntu. You
Yeah.
are because I am. Everybody is because you are, right? That collective nature. Now, if we want to, for instance, import the idea of American individualism into the African context, it may be a very bad fitting. It's just like putting, you know, a square in a round hole. As much as it works for the American system, right? That tenet might not be best for the African, because the African personality, our history, our people, our aspirations, our dreams, our challenges are based, right, on our experiences. And therefore, we need to begin to import those democratic values that are in alignment with our cultural requirements. Things like human rights, okay? Things like freedom, things like the rule of law. All of these things that help to protect the life and the aspirations of the people must be put in place. And finally, because the hope of this country, the hope of Africa, and even the hope of the world lies in the hands of the youth. Let us begin to see how we can educate, because it looks like, from at least one thing we can learn from the protest is that there are the educated youths, there are the non-educated youths, okay? There are the so-called ethical young people, and there are the very, very deprived, or what I would say, people who have been victims of the system, who now begin to leverage on other, you know, social violence. It's always been there. When you do not harness the potential of people for the good, that potential would either be harnessed somehow. So I feel like we need to begin to think about how we can re-educate, all right? Young people. We need to relearn, unlearn, okay? Unlearn some of the bad things that we have learned, relearn new models of thinking, new models of behaviors, right? And empower the young person to be civically engaged. In the words of Omotola, we have suffered so much political apathy, and that's why we have so much evil happening in the world. I'm happy that we are speaking up right now. People are beginning to take destinies into their hands. People are woke. There's a consciousness. And so that momentum has to be consolidated. However, we now need to begin to focus on competence or capacity development. We need young people that are highly competent, young people that have the capacity to deliver on the promises that the old people could not, and which the young one will be happy to see. And we need the people that have the right character. Competence, capacity, and character. These three C's will help us deliver the new Nigeria that we're looking for. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Hillary, can you hear us? Do you have any contributions to make to the program? Hillary? Okay.
I think great. Hillary, go ahead. Hillary is a very good friend. So she really joined, and she was very interested to join, and she was like, I have to be part of this. So Hillary, please, please. We really need to hear from you.
I'm actually at work, so I've been kind of just listening in, and it's been very interesting, insightful. I think it was definitely a different perspective than what I've heard, like people speaking about like the protests in America this year. So that has been, I think you guys, like, it's really been impressive. I've really enjoyed it, and thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you. That's so brief. Thanks so much. Mr. Emeka, Kenneth. Kenneth? Hello, Kenneth. Do you have any question, any contribution on the program? You've been on the program with us from start. Do you have anything to say to us, to contribute, questions to ask? Kenneth, unmute yourself. Okay, while we wait for him, Dr. Tade.
Hello.
Okay, Kenneth is here.
Yes, I say I'm very impressed with the discussion.
Okay.
The panelists did a good job to the subject of discussion. So welcome development.
All right. All right. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so
Keep it
much.
up. Well done.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I feel like
Okay.
Kenneth is the next professor for African universities. These are very professorial commendations.
Commendation. Interesting. Interesting. Okay, finally, over to you, Dr. Tadesa.
Thank you, everyone. I think for me, everything for me is summarized into the concept of justice. I think we have it in the national anthem.
Yeah.
But it is not something that is experienced in the country, and that is why we are still having this kind of engagement. It's an injustice, and not to have power that will run the economy onto which many people could realize their dreams. Everything is connected to power. We don't have it. So putting it in the national anthem, and then the president also rendering this, and then getting to that portion where they say justice shall reign, and nothing is being done is an injustice. So it is something that they should be concerned with, because
everybody's giving their final remark now.
Hello, Dr.
because all right. So
this is interesting. I don't even want to leave myself.
so we are that is not operational and is not being felt, then of course peace, trying to force peace on people may be difficult. So I envision a country where we can begin to experience justice in poverty alleviation, in enjoying quality education. And I say the issue of education passionately because the difference between the educated protesters and the uneducated protesters was apparent. The uneducated ones were the arsonists. Yes, they could be youths, but they were the one who destroyed everything that had been spent to build physical infrastructure. And this is what we tell the leadership. You don't invest in structure and not invest in the people. So you need to invest in people, and that will bring justice, because, and that is a form of inclusion. We cannot be in the future while leaving majority people outside, because we would not be able to get to that future because these people are outside and will frustrate everything that we do. Imagine someone quoting as much as 1 trillion naira for the destruction in just 1 day. And that is the cost of leaving so many people outside. That is exclusion. So when we all these people, when we provide level playing ground and opportunity for the children of the masses and the children of the well-to-do to cohabit peacefully in a particular country, then we are hitching closer to that country of our dreams. So justice for me is very, very important. So we need to elevate that in the national discourse. And I share the thoughts of Fidelis and then Omotola on the need to have active citizenship that is engaging not only online, because the online community is active, is almost anonymous, and so people say all sorts of things there. But in the real physical life where we are, where the real thing eats us, people are silent, and that is where we need to engage. So if we are, that is what happened. The difference between the online ENDSARS protesters and the physical ENDSARS protesters is that government sees the physical ones as more threatening, the survival of life. He did everything to ensure that that's one. So they are just coming back to those ones that are online, how to control those ones that are online. So it means that we need to take that particular space. It's a space that has been controlled for so long, but may we take it and then derail it again. And I think that will be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Dr. Tade, Fidelis, Father Kelvin, Omotola, thank you so much. You guys are great intellectuals and future for the country, for our nation rather, according to Bona. Nigeria is a nation, not a country. You guys are the future of this nation. I'm so happy that we all came to this dialogue and we have successfully had a dialogue, a conversation. We also thank those who joined us on Facebook where we are streaming live. Anthony, we see you, Puma, Stella, Emmanuel, Martin, Sikechiku, a whole lot of people that joined us. Thank you so much. One takeaway from this conversation is we all have different levels of influence. At whatever level your influence is, please use it. At home, at work, in the family, wherever you are, use your influence right. And we continue to pray, I'll continue to say that the labors of our heroes past shall never be in vain. This dialogue continues. This is not the last one. And I hope that when we invite every one of you again, we'll continue on this roundtable. On this note, I draw the curtain and I say thank you, everybody, and do have a lovely, beautiful weekend. And we all look forward to having a new and a great Nigeria in no distant time. God bless you all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
And you too. Father, bye from